Thanks.
And as part of that, I'm going to enable a transcript. So you can turn off the transcript at the bottom of your screen if you would like, just hide captions or leave it on. Julian, how are you this morning?
Hey, Jason, nice to see you. I'm curious about your email.
Okay, well,
looking forward to see how you're using APIs and the next steps. Love it.
sounds good. So Ellie, Henry, and Julian are actually certified flow designers. So you're getting some expert flow users on the call today. But this is Ellie's first time. We were talking about Beirut, where he currently is, Beirut, Lebanon. So welcome. So Ellie, before we launch in though, tell me, how did you find flow, and do you have an interest? Do you have a use case you're interested in right now?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a bit about my background. I'm a marketeer, so I've worked with a lot of, with General Electric, Abbott, Johnson & Johnson, and I was always on the marketing side, dealing with a lot of data, obviously. Recently, I started giving educational resources to NGOs about the importance of data and research. So when I saw Flow, so actually I saw it through the famous video on TikTok, and the data guy. I don't know.
Yes, he's Michael. He's our head of business here at Flow. Yes.
Oh, okay. So so I saw the Flow. I went in, tried to understand exactly how things are being done, and I'm very interested in learning how to join this this wave of fantastic tool.
Super, thank you. Welcome to the Flow tribe, as we call it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let me launch right, and I'm happy to speak with you outside the call, or Bill. Just feel free to get in touch, of course. But let me go ahead and launch into the content for the show here. So let's see if I can pull this off without too many glitches. So I'm just going to share my screen the old-fashioned way and start right out. So not only do I want you guys to understand how it works, but I want you to be able to reproduce it on your own. I'll clean up my screen a little bit, when I'm not there. So the way to do that is to show you where the documentation is that enables you to do everything that we're going to do today. And today the topic is the Flow Dataset API. You can get at it from any API language you would like. Today, I'm going to show you getting at it from Python, getting at it from process of exporting things out of Gephi into Flow, and also PowerBI. So we've got 3 little tricks to go through today. So here in the Flow editor, I'm going to start out and just create a flow. By default, the first thing that happens when you create a flow is the templates window pops up, and we're just going to skip that for the moment and instead go straight to Magic Help. And in Magic Help, you can do things just like type, and it gives you a bunch of matches. And all of these are topics we'll go through, but kind of the overview here is the Datasets API. And this little Magic Help says, hey, here's how it's going to work. It shows you where the Datasets API is going to live and how to work with the Flow Python client. So just to show this piece first, just so it's clear, in the Manage Data box, there is a datasets uploaded via API. Now you'll only see this box if you have uploaded a dataset through the API. So it's not going to confuse a lot of users who aren't interested in APIs. And so don't be surprised if it doesn't show up the very first time. Just to be clear, you can always upload CSV files. We have a little data library, and you can also connect it directly to Google Sheets. And this is a 4th way of getting data into Flow. So back to our Magic Help, where we type API. And so let's take a look at the Flow Python client. So sometimes when you interact here, it will actually just pop up a new window, which will give you the information. This is our docs.flow.gl. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the code, which is, as you can see, an extremely complicated bit of work. Not at all. So our flow GL PyPy is, library is posted on PyPy. So you can grab it extremely easily and quickly. And you can see the steps here. You're in Pandas, so you'll have a data frame. You need to have your username and password to authenticate to the client. And you'll have a title of your data set. You want to give your data set a unique name. So first thing I'm going to do is just replace this. I'm going to pull this to the other window so I can do my password. And collapse that little box so that it's hidden, right? So that's just my username and password from Flow. And I like this data set title, so I'll just leave that. And so that's test 3. So let's go try it. First of all, John, Jane, and Joe are the data set that we're shooting for here. So in Windows, obviously this works in Jupyter notebooks and other environments too, but I'm just going to keep the simplest thing. In Windows, I actually have to set an execution policy and activate my virtual environment to get into Python. And now that I'm in Python, I can go ahead and run this script. But I actually, I didn't save it. I better go back and save my file. Have that saved, and let's see if it all does what it's supposed to do. All the magic is happening, and it's done. Okay, so what just happened? It pushed data into Flow, and that's the way the API is designed. It's a push mechanism. And we originally tried to build a pull mechanism when we would write all of our API code to reach into other people's databases. And we kept having issues with customers, and these are big enterprise customers, where data security, is it possible for us to pull the wrong data or too much data? And in this mechanism, we decided with a push API, all of that responsibility can rely on the end customer. And there's, really 2 use cases here we're describing, right? One use case is that the Flow, it's like probably your use case, Julian and Henry, where you're just a sole operator and you just want to work in Python and push data into the system. There's another use case where there's applications where you've got a constant data feed, and those things need to keep coming into the system. So when I'm talking about enterprise customers and building all these complicated APIs, it was more of that latter thing. But so now to continue, dataset uploaded via API. These are other data sets I have uploaded over time. Test was the name. And you can see that the latest version was pushed less than a minute ago. What we do is we actually maintain all of the versions that are, every time you push to the same data set title, we will keep that version around, and you can either grab a specific version like I'm doing now, or you can say keep up with the latest version. And what that means is every time you push and then you refresh Flow, and that is the statement, that is an important step, you refresh Flow, it will grab the latest version. It won't keep a specific version. Let me explain why that is important. If you're doing a presentation on a constant feed of data coming in, well, you do the presentation on Friday afternoon, on Monday morning, you want it to be the same data you were working with on Friday night because you're in front of people and you don't want it to change out from under you. But if you're doing something like a more of a dashboard kind of use case, then you always want the latest version. So check the box based on your preference. We'll go ahead and select that. And now if we go ahead, I'll just come back to it here. Here's test. It's now a data set, and there's John, Jane, and Joe, which was the original data from the Python client we were looking at, John, Jane, and Joe. So in some ways, it's like incredibly easy. Without all that external explanation, I basically have a script which you do your data. We need to, call our one push data, and that does the whole ball of wax. So before I go on into the next demos, let me just see if there's any questions on what we just accomplished. Make sense, Julian, Henry?
Yeah, feels really nice to. I was talking to Luisa here, and she's the one that it's expert on, more expert than me, using Jupyter Notebook and Pandas, and
Yes.
seems really straightforward, right? For keeping it updated and more flexible than using Google Sheets, So we can do interesting stuff on Jupyter Notebook and upload it already. So
exactly, it's designed. We tried to, we keep trying, of course, the flow to make the workflows as simple and easy as possible. So, okay. So
yeah, I think it will work great. Yeah.
So let's show some other example, even though that's probably what you'll use. If I show you some other examples, maybe it'll spark ideas as well. So, and then the next idea will to actually, Ellie, this next process will actually get into the flow editor and show you some cool magic there.
All right.
So let's go to Gephi. So Gephi is a typical environment for doing network graphs, both nodes and edges, take nodes and edges and get it into flow, or get it and build these really organic looking structures. So in Gephi, they have some default data sets, and I'm going to use one of those. And this data set has a set of nodes and edges. And if we hit refresh, maybe we'll see it. Okay, so this is airports. And this is actually not a network graph, particularly. This is actually just nodes with lat longs connected with lines, which is something that, of course, Flow does easily, but this does easily. So say you're in Gephi and you can do a whole bunch of filtering and manipulation of these graphs, and the underlying file format is nodes and edges. Now, Flow works with flat files. It needs tables similar to like a CSV file. It doesn't know how to deal with, internally, it doesn't really know how to deal with nodes and edges files or JSON files. So what is nice about this is it is an example of taking very different data and turning it into the CSV format that we need. So we're going to export this data set as a graph file, which is a JSON, and we'll just save. You can tell I've done this demo before. Replace that. So now we've got a JSON file, and how do I know what to do with it? Well, in this case, I can, type API again, and it's going to tell me how to export from Gephi to Flow. Click that. I have an article, and I have, again, our little bit of code. And you can read the article. There are some important bits you may want to review. But now that I've got this other set, let me just make sure okay. So this is that same code. It's just that I've already put my user and password into the client. And you don't have to expose your password, of course. You can put it into environment variables the same way that you normally would with your local environment. I'm just keeping things as simple as possible. In this case, the node ID key is important. In Gephi, it exports each node with an ID, and the parameter name is key. Well, yeah, let me show you that just so it's clear. So this is the file that Gephi exported, and you see that each node has the ID, the unique ID of each node is marked as key. You'll also see all these attributes, additional attributes in the file. So you'll see how those come across. So remember, I've got this Gephi test file. Again, very simple process using our PyPy. And let's get back to Windows Shell. And in this case, I am just going to run, the other thing I had to do, I did mention, you do have to put in the path name to the JSON file. So cheated and had that set beforehand. And here's the Gephi test script. Hit go. The magic happens and it's done. So now what happened is it actually pushed something called Gephi test into Flow. So let's just make a step here. And in the data, you will now see Gephi test. Now remember, the first time you push a data set, it will show up here. After that, it will keep updating that same data set. As I said, keep up with the latest version. I think it will grab it. Let's make sure that it grabbed the file without. Yes, so here's the keys, and you see all of the airports. The way it pulled in those attributes is attributes.label. If you remember, the JSON had a nested structure. So now we've got something we can work with. Let's go ahead and build something out of it. And select Gephi test. So all the data points show up as dots in the scene. Just making sure that all participants have joined. Okay, so just dots in a 3D scene, not too exciting yet. Let's go ahead and make this a network graph. And in our network graph system, we have a node ID, which what file, what attribute in your data set is your ID, and what attribute is your list of edges. And we see something kind of bubble up here. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. And it's still, even though it's doing a force-directed graph, it doesn't really look very graph-like without connections. So let's add some connections. In this case, we want to connect the dots by the ID in column key with a connections column list of edges. And now all of the dots have a structure. You can see their connections. I'm going to make it a little bit thinner because I think it's prettier. Oops. So now the lines are these thin little lines connecting the dots. And just to give us a sense of what's in the data, I'm going to add a label. So Ellie, this is new looking at the editor here, but these are components that are attached to the base swarm. So a swarm decides how to put all the dots in space. And then we're going to add any number of components. You can have 1 labels objects, 5 labels objects. Right now it's pulling the key, but instead of the key, I'd rather have it pull the city name. But that is kind of a mess. So let's add a condition. So we say only show those labels when the value of the size is greater than, let's pick a number. So size was an attribute in the original data set, and it had to do with how many connections each one of these points have. So you can already start to see, a little bit structure of the United States. Remember, there's no that long information here, but the force-directed graph knows that just because LA, Portland, and Seattle have fewer connections, they're ending up on one side of the graph. And yeah, just straight up there. Let's go ahead and have a little bit more fun with the data set because we can. So let's go back to swarm. So let's scale the size of the dots. Instead of being a fixed value, let's scale them based on the size. So the bigger airports, or the airports with more connections, are bigger than the other ones. And there's a scale it from max to min. Let's do a similar thing with the colors. And by default, it's going to pick key again. Let's make it size. Okay, so the biggest airports are red. Now we're getting to looks like something kind of nice. We can just get a sense of it here in 3D. It's a little hard to see on a flat screen because of the complexity. So let's play with that a little bit more. One of the things with, without going into too much detail on our network graph system, is you can add any number of forces. Right now, there's a link force, which is basically pulls all the nodes into the underlying structure, says anything that's linked to anything else, make it closer to its neighbors. And then we want to, if without an attract repulse force, here, I'll just show you, that would pull it all into a single tight ball. So we add an attract repulse force, which gives it this structure. And that's interesting that that keeps popping up. Gives it this structure, it pushes all the nodes apart. And, you know, it could be a little confusing. What's attract repulse? What are these things? Well, we've got some good help. Positive values attract nodes and negative values repulse. So I just happen to know that negative 30 is the default and works pretty well. Let's add another force, which is to flatten the depth. And what that does is it makes it a little bit more readable on a flat screen. So I know that the nice animations aren't coming across. In fact, well, I know that the nice animations aren't coming across, but you can still see that when you look at this thing on the side, it's been compressed. And I can tell it how compressed to make it based on the percentage here. And that's really handy if you know you're going to show something sometimes on flat screens and sometimes in 3D space. And now I'm going to have just a little bit more fun because I can. So why not? So say I like this, but I would like it to have a little bit more relationship to the lat longs. So we have, in addition to everything else, we have additional dimensions, which is once you use the swarm mechanisms, the basic swarm mechanisms in charts, which is where you can create network graphs and scatter plots and categorizations and put things on maps, etc. Once you've arranged the dots in a base configuration, you can then add an additional dimension on top of that. And here we're going to do something. We're going to add the latitude for the width. So as I increase that, let me reset here. Actually, I want the longitude for the width, don't I? There we go. So as I increase that width, you can see that LA and Portland start to push farther to the left. And if I do the same thing for height, but latitude, if I push these hard enough, you can see that now not only is there a force-directed graph, but the cities start to align themselves in the right place. And you can balance this as much as you want. You can make it so that the force-directed graph has almost no influence on the chart. You can see that, you know, Seattle's been pushed way far north because it's north. Minneapolis pushed way far north. Memphis, Atlanta started being pushed south. LA. So you can balance how much of the latitude and longitude you want to apply to this chart versus how much of the force-directed graph to apply to the chart. And then just to be, you know, just to be clear here, and then just to be kind of like extra, you know, creative, we can also change the depth. Since I kind of flattened these, I can now use the depth attribute, maybe the size, so the biggest airports stand up off the page. And let me go back here to present to be a little bit clearer. So now we look at it straight on. We see, you know, there's a force-directed graph, there's latitude, there's longitude, and the size attribute pushes the larger airports toward us. All kinds of different ways. As you can imagine, the numbers of ways that you can arrange data in 3D space is infinite, and that's my little experiment there. So I'm going to stop there now and take questions on either the Gephi process, the JSON parsing, and or what I did with the force-directed graph. Kind of cool though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got to give myself a little bit of kudos here. Got to ask for compliments. It's a beautiful system. The whole team has been working to create something amazing. Thank you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So if any other questions, I will show you quickly Power BI. Before I do that, do we have any Power BI fans? Have you guys used Power BI? Do you like it? No. Okay.
I've used it. It certainly is. It's got a lot it can do. So it's a good connection.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird tool. You got to understand. Anyway, it can take a lot of work to understand it. So again, how would you use it? You don't have to memorize the steps. Instead, just go here and into Magic Help, type Power, and it will pop up Power BI. Now, Power BI, just going to be a little easier to see the documentation here. To do a Power BI integration takes a reasonable number of steps. I'm sorry, it just takes a few clicks. I'm not going to go through it all right now because you guys, it's not core to what you're interested in. But I will create a whole video on how to do this. Basically, you need to use the Power Automate, and you have to use the Power Automate website. Make sure you use the website, not the Power Automate app, because the website has an import feature. So in Power BI, there is something called a flow, not our flow, but that's what they call the Power Automate functions that do run scripts and do operations. So that flow needs to be imported, and you will import our Power Automate zip file from here. So we click it, it's going to download this zip file, and that zip file you import into Power Automate, upload it, and you have to do a few clicks here. They're pretty clear. Select during import. You have to make sure that your Power BI is connected to your username, to your Microsoft user. If you haven't used Power BI before, you'll need to do that. If you have used it fairly often, you'll already have that connection. And so this shows you how to create that connection between your user and Power BI. Then you need to open that flow, and this is actually the flow itself. So here, now that you've gone through some of these setups, so remember you've got a zip file which contains our prepackaged flow, which does the magic. And once you've got that set up, you would come into Power BI. You're going to create an automate, what do we call these things? Panels inside of your dashboard. Going to edit it. And you need to connect your this flow template to your system. So that's what this is. This shows up because I imported it earlier from Power Automate. So I would need to select it. We want to edit it because this is the flow itself. And here is where you would set your username. And don't edit the top two, just edit the last one. Jason, I won't open my password because that has my password in it. And you also need to set the title of the thing. So I know it's tiny on the screen, but it says Power BI test. This is the dataset title that's going to show up in the Flow Datasets API. So once you do those things, you need to save and apply. If you just save, it won't work. You've got to make sure you hit apply. And take me back. And you need to turn on this script. If it's turned off, then the run won't be enabled, and that will drive you crazy. And this screen right here is also where you can see prior runs. So obviously I'm not building, I've used this flow before, so I've got some prior runs. Okay, back to the report. So now that I've got all of that, I can, let's see, I think I missed one step. What did I miss? So I select it. I have to hit checkbox. Oh, apply. Now when I come back, now it looks like a button, but it's tiny. And so let's go ahead and change the button text. I'm going to call it push to flow immersive. See, I have a backup here in case I do something wrong. And my demo, I don't succeed in building it from scratch. Okay, push to flow immersive. You can go ahead and publish this and then run it from a dashboard, or you can control click it. It says it's triggering. So in this environment, you have to do control click to select it. So it said it was triggered. Now, just to be clear, we can go in here and we can see that it worked, or if there were errors, we'll be able to see them in this view. So this is the run history, and you can see that this was 16 seconds ago. It ran, it took it 16 seconds. It says it's still running. That's actually not a good sign. I'm not sure what's going on there. So I'll have to come back and look. There's some piece of the edit puzzle. But instead of trying to debug that live with you guys, let's just try this one. It should be set up the same way. Maybe I had something slightly different. Yeah, okay. Anyway, let's push that. It says triggering. It says triggered. And now this time when I go look at the flow itself, it says it succeeded. So I'll have to figure out what's going on with some step I did, missed on the other one. But now that it's triggered, I can go back into flow. And here I'm just going to add a step. Oh, I know what I did. I didn't add any data to it. Of course, that won't work. Okay, so I've got this button. How does it know what data to apply? So I've got some data I've already pulled in before. Actually, let's just use this one. And we have to apply some data fields. By default, when you add data, it's summing the data, which, I mean, maybe you want to summarize it, maybe you don't. But basically you create whatever, do all the processing that you would like to do in Power BI. And then you assign the resulting fields from the data set to your button. So now actually, if I go here and I say show as table, you can actually see the data that's present. Let's go back. And now when I trigger it, triggered, it worked. We'll just go straight over to flow, and we're going to create a blank step, and let's create a new swarm and grab this data. So manage data. This is the Power BI test. There's the one that we just created. Select that. And reset camera. And there's the data that we just dropped in. Here we can go ahead and take a look at it. So it had an index, label, and step connection. Those are those columns I picked in Power BI. So a little bit more complicated, a lot of steps from Power BI to get yourself set up. But once you're done on a dashboard, really handy way to be able to do anything you can possibly do in Power BI and push it to flow. Questions, ideas?
So you said that the Power Automate needs to be on the web, but here you are using the Power BI desktop.
Power Automate is a different app than Power BI.
Yeah.
And Power Automate, we need to use the web version, which actually, because it's the only way to import it, it imports it into your user, your Power BI user, which is attached to your Microsoft account. I think there's a 90-day free trial of Power BI, but you need an actual full account to do to use Power Automate and Power BI. So now that you've connected that flow, the push to flow immersive flow in Power BI, then it will show up in Power BI application.
Okay. But
And-
you cannot do like you need to use the Power BI desktop to do all of this. You cannot do it on the web.
I think you can do it on the web as well. I haven't
Okay.
tried it myself.
We'll try.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, Martin, hi, good morning. Are you more of a Power BI person?
No, it's that we use it at work. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we use it more to display dashboards and so on than to manipulate the data. But that could be handy.
One of our customers is, uses a lot of Power BI, and they are interested in using it for both, right? So they build their dashboard, but certain aspects of the dashboard they want to present in a more interesting way. And once they've done all the manipulations and all the data flows and inputs and everything into Power BI, it's really handy to just be able to suck that data into flow and keep their workflow going without having to worry about additional export steps.
Yep.
Super. All right. So with that, I'm open to any questions, and I can also go back to, for Ellie, if you'd like, we can go back and give you a little bit more kind of overview of Flow and the Flow editor. So I'm game to do that too, but any ideas or questions from anybody? Every topic is open.
Yeah, I apologize if I missed this. I'm not used to getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning. But where how do we get the Flow GL module so to use in Python?
So it's actually a pipey.
Oh, okay.
So I think this from FlowGL import statement gets it, but if
Okay.
I may have missed a step.
Okay. It does not work directly in Jupyter Notebooks because I literally just tried it, so I will say that doesn't work. But good to know.
Okay, let me get back to you, and well, actually, let's see if the library. Let me just see if there's more information on how to get the pipey. No, there's not. So our developer, who is actually a Pandas guy and Python guy, and I am not, I have to admit, just assumed that was a really easy step.
Okay.
So
It's
IP,
early yet. Maybe I'll figure it out.
FlowGL 0.13 on pipey.
Okay.
Pip install FlowGL. Grab that line. And I will update the documents. You're trying it now?
Yeah, immediately started going for it.
You want to share your screen and we'll see how it works?
I do not, no.
Okay. So we did have actually a call with one of the big consultancies, and we only showed the Python bit, and within 10 minutes he actually had it live and running on in his environment. And let me say, he was very impressed that he could be pushing data to his flow that quickly. So other questions on this set of things? And then I'd like to show Ellie around just a little bit if you guys don't have other questions on flow integration. Henry says, okay. So Henry, Ellie, let me give you a quick overview. You probably got some sense just looking around our website but if I describe it in 5 minutes, maybe it'll give you a different perspective. So if you haven't already registered, go to a.flow.gl and register. In order to get into the heart of this, you'll need to activate a 14-day free trial. And that will, after you start to create flows and we'll start to manipulate them, it's going to say that you need to do that. And but here on the first page, even without registering it, take a look at some of the flows that have been created. There's a couple of dozen featured flows. There's Discover, which is public flows. People, when they're working with the flow, they can push it to discovery. And you can see, you know, Santa's journey, different flows that folks have created. And then you have your own workspace. This is the space where you have created your own flows. And those can be either your flows or flows that have been shared with you. And it can be a handy view of what you're working on. Once you get here, you create a new flow. And as you can tell, we call these things that you create flows because we don't know what else to call them. They're not exactly presentations, they're etc. So we come in here because I already have a data set selected. Well, this is a new flow. Oh, interesting. I think I just found a little bug, but without going into that, you come in here, you have a set of templates that you can select from. So let me just go ahead and select a template. I am going kind of quickly, just as an overview.
That's fine.
It's good. So
Yeah.
when you select a template, it actually creates a whole swarm. The swarm is what we call these dots floating in space. We came up with our own name because if we called it a chart, people might think it's, you know, a bar chart, and it's kind of so much more than that. And we just wanted our own unique identifier to describe this thing. So it creates a swarm with all the connections and labels, and in this case, a legend. And the first thing it does when you create from a template, it says, here's the data we used. We do that to help people see that, hey, this is the way we expect to see data. You can download this CSV file if you want, or you can replace the data with your own. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to drop in a data set, which is some stock data. It's going to complain about, it says, hey, when I try to replace columns, it's going to have a hard time because there wasn't enough numeric columns in the original data set. But in any case, it's going to say, this is the column that was used, and this is the column that we're replacing it with on something like the width axis. So we can say the continent was on the width axis. Turns out I want the date to be on my width axis. It's actually doing it real time here. So date, I want, instead of my height axis, I want it to be the change over time. And the depth, I do want it to be an index, right? These are different, what we got Amazon and Tesla, these are different indexes. The colors are not mapping very well, but that's okay. I can just click on color and it's going to navigate me to the right part of the app. Same thing here, width axis, it navigates me to the pull down that enables me to fix the thing that, you know, I probably want to fix. So in this case, the color scheme is being assigned to date. I'd rather have it be assigned to the index. And that's it. Now I have taken a template, I've swapped in my own data and made it, that template has all these parts and pieces, including an interactive legend, which when I select, it's identified to isolate whatever I've selected. And just to be clear, you get to that, you can see what's in the legend either by clicking on this guy here. You see now we're editing the legend as opposed to the swarm, or you can also select the components here. So on the legend, again, moving fast, but you get a sense of it. It was by default set to isolate. I could also do something like highlight, which says that when I click, highlight whatever I select and de-highlight what I don't select. I could maybe make it a multi-select so I can highlight multiple ones. and it's set to clear it when you re-click. So without getting too complicated, that gives you an overview of how you can create a swarm from a template. We can now share this, can make it public link. So let me give it a title, new flow for demo. New flow for demo. And this is now live and on the web. You can grab your phone and actually see it in augmented reality floating in front of you with a few more steps.
So I need to
Questions
download
on
the app.
that, Ellie?
So so I need to download the app, right?
No, this is go to a.flow.gl. It's all in the browser.
Oh, directly. Okay.
Yeah, and for here, just point your camera on your phone.
I just point my camera and that's it. It's on my browser. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we could have built something with where you had to compile in Unity, and that whole process would have taken you 5 hours instead of 5 seconds. But that would have been ugly.
Oh, very nice.
So are you on an iPhone or a Android?
iPhone.
Okay. So on Android, you can click the AR button and it immediately shows up in AR in Chrome on Android. On iPhone, we have to rely on the WebXR viewer, which is a Mozilla app. So it's, you know, Mozilla Fire, it's
Chromium, yeah.
yeah. And once you get that downloaded, point at the QR code again, and then you can click AR and then you can see it in augmented reality glory. But we're waiting for Safari to support WebXR. They say that they're going to support it, and then they, you know, Apple.
Does it work on Chrome or not?
On Apple, there's no AR without Mozilla WebXR.
Let me download it.
So even in Chrome on the Apple devices, on iPhone devices, it does not go into AR.
Okay.
I wish.
I think this is okay, Mozilla.
It is, even though there's the extra step on iPhone, it is really nice, especially the newer iPhones actually have built-in LiDAR instead of just processing from the camera view. So it is more solidly in the room with on iPhone once you get there. And that's when you saw you know, the data guy on TikTok, literally that's what he's doing. He's just doing a screen capture of his iPhone showing the content. There's no post-processing video tricks.
Cool. All right, so Jason, just a quick question. So since I'm not a technical person, so I have you know, NGOs coming in with a lot of data, and they need someone to tell a story, right, for their fundraising. So I'm kind of like the guy who connects the dots and who comes up with the value prop and you know, how to tell their story. So I've seen that I can basically use some of the data analysts or like I'm not going to be able to do it myself, obviously, right? I need
Look, we've tried to design it with a no-code environment, so you could do it. Obviously, you probably won't do all the Python things, but that said, you're talking to the right people. We have a group called the Certified Flow Designers, and Henry and Julian and Martine, who was with us earlier, are all certified flow designers. I tuned this this training for the API for them a little bit. Usually we have more newcomers like yourself on the call, but today you get to talk to them directly, and they're all over the world, and they are happy to talk directly with you. There's a certified flow designer page on our website,
Okay.
or Henry and Julian, you can share your contact information with Ellie now. That's great too. You can either work with us. You can come to Flow and say, hey, Flow, we want you to build this thing. And we either will do it internally or more likely ask our Flow designers to get involved and work with you and pass it to them. Or you can talk to them directly and have them, just build it. We don't have to be a middleman in at all.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea is to try to reimagine data and how we can interact with it. So, and I understand working with this, that every work it's unique in its form to what needs to be created and how to tackle it. And so it's, well, feel free to reach us, and we would love to help you. We try to visualize anything that is on your mind.
Yeah,
there's lots of stories to be told, and I think we can help you tell them.
Maybe the most powerful thing to do, Julian and Henry, do you each want to do a 2 or 3 minute demo? Just grab a Flow and share it with Ellie.
Let me see if I have something easy here.
And that way you can see an example of their work, so it's not just abstract. I can tell you that they're awesome guys, because they are. But if you see it, it's more meaningful, it's more powerful than words.
Yeah, and well, we're trying to do things ourselves, also to use Flow as a platform to study and learn things. So let me just, I was doing an exercise here to try to, let me share my screen here. So,
Oh, just quick update on the import thing. It was my fault. I run mostly everything in Python 3.7, and it's the modules of 3.9 or better. So all the issues are on my side. You guys are fine.
Well, actually, Raphael, who actually built our Python implementation, just came on the call, so you can ask more detailed questions, including the pip install step that was missing from the documentation. So Raphael, meet Henry and Julian. They're certified Flow designers, work with us all the time.
Hey, Raphael.
Yeah, this one we're trying to see. Well, it's in another language right now, but the idea was to see the flow for planting and harvesting different types of vegetables, and what could go with together. And so we have different harvest seasons for each type of vegetable here. So there are some things that we can create to easily try to understand, okay, early stages of the year, we can how we can process and help treating the land. So this was something that I was trying to work on, and kind of throwing to Flow was already a way to understand, okay, so when you're talking about onions, what times of the year I can use them here. So and it was for myself, so it was just a way to try to visualize my own data and see what I can do with it, So
nice.
And also,
so guys, that is correctly, if I'm pitching something to a client, I can put it either on my desktop or in AR mode on my phone, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm pitching the data.
Yes. Or we didn't really talk about it. Or of course, all of these, it all works on headsets too. Both.
Oh, does it?
Both VR, augmented reality, Quests. Yes.
So how do I do with Quest 2? How do I do that? Like I just scan the QR code, or does it have, do I have to log in?
The easiest way is to just go to the Oculus browser, and the URL is a.flow.gl, and then you'll just see your list of flows. It's the same, you'll see the same browser. When you select one of those, it will load, and then it'll be enter AR or enter VR based on what's available on your device.
Okay, that's interesting.
And then you fly around with your thumb controllers and interact with it. So it's not necessary to use headsets to see this stuff, but if you've got an in-person it's
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's a
in-person event,
so
you can
to
really
blow
plug
their
into
mind,
it.
right? Like that's basically my strategy. So the more futuristic, the better.
Well, this is great.
and
Julian, tell me about that.
Yeah, Julian, this is a
yeah,
great
this is,
show.
another version of it. So what goes together, because there are some ways of doing permaculture. So we plant several species together, and they kind of help each other to grow. So this one was my first attempt on a ref nodes that Jason was teaching today. So what goes along with beans? So we can use like corn, potatoes, and cucumbers and you can plant them together, and they will thrive together.
Let me show you something here, Julian, if you don't mind. Go into the editor. Sorry, distraction, but it'll only take one click. So, and on the chart, scroll down on the right-hand side and go to the interactivity. Yeah, the interactive section. Instead of highlight, instead of highlight, do isolate. And now click on one of the dots.
This one, right? Okay.
Oh yeah. So now it's going, when you click, it's going to isolate to only those things that are one step away. So in a way to say, what do I want to grow together? Well, you want to grow, I'm not sure what pepino is, but you want to grow.
Yes. So
right
it's
away
exactly
exactly what
that is my original language. So I was dealing with it. But
That's...
yeah, there are beans, peas, pepino is cucumber. So
cucumber,
corn
okay.
and potatoes.
So fun.
This is like, sorry.
So in the interest of time, let's move on. And but this is a really fun example of using the directed graphs. Cool. Henry, do you want to show something?
Yeah, this is I don't think you guys have seen this one before.
Great. And then Raphael, we'll have just a couple of questions on the Python. So we'll come back to that. But I wanted to, Ellie was interested in hiring certified flow designers. And since we have a couple on the call, I thought we would have them just show off their work briefly.
Yeah, so a bit of a background. I collect enamel pins from a very specific source, not Disney World. But so I got the information as a database from them, and so this is just kind of like the distribution, and it's a fairly large data set that's allowed me to play around with stuff. So like it starts out just as like the full cloud, and then we can sort it out, and this is just all of the locations where you can get the pins, and then move on to the next step, and it breaks it out to what year they were all released in, but still stays color coded to what event they were at. And then the next one, go into a graph, so it's all broken out and has the nice the
area charts,
translucent, the area charts. Thank you, Jason. All right, and so that's great. And then this one, the next step, I was playing around with the breakdown to show all the everything kind of broken out like that, and playing around with some buttons. So like this chart, the height is the total number of pins released that year, and then it's all color coded to the event that they were released at. And then if we click 2015, it breaks it all down. So you can see it all as a nice line. These all, of course, have information about the year.
That's so nice.
And then, yeah, this was a fun one. And then you can hit the reset and it goes back. And then as a different layout, you got 2016. And so that does a whole kind of starburst thing. So yeah, that was one of the ones I used to practice some of the things I can't use on my star flows. So
So I will say it's fun to see you guys working on your personal projects. And if you're like us, it's hard to show some of your professional work because it's private to customers.
Yeah.
So respect that. But I'll just say that yes, these are cool and beautiful and meaningful, but there are very many use cases of serious work being done by enterprises with Flow.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, because when you go through dashboards and this what we're talking about today here, so getting the live data being updated as a dashboard, this could be really useful to a different way to interact with your own data. So and that I think is amazing for companies and or for different kinds of work. So you have a control over a portfolio of companies and all the data and everything that's being done. So you can have that kind of control, right? So those control rooms or environments that are in AR or VR, that's really something that I think here at Flow we'd like to talk about. So different ways of interacting with that data and in a way that helps us, not only like a technology marvel, but something that have used for additional dimensions, have used for those things that only Flow can give it to us.
So the way I describe this is it's not just cool. Cool is, let's just define cool. You know, when you see Iron Man flicking atoms in augmented reality, right? We go, oh, that's cool. What we really are responding to is that mastery and control, right? And that mastery and control means that you can get an idea into the mind of your audience with more clarity, have them build a better mental model more quickly, and that's efficiency and that's business value. So I'm really clear that what we're doing is not just making cool, pretty diagrams, although they are cool and they are pretty, but they also really help communicate in a way that's going to stick in the mind of your audience and build them, get them to see the detail and the big picture in a way that they would not do with a typical bar chart in a boring PowerPoint deck. With that, we had two questions, Raphael. One was just the install, pip install isn't in our documentation. So I just pulled it up in by Googling PyPI Flow GL. So I think we just need to add that to documentation. Is there anything else that we should know about PyPI?
No, already added that 5 minutes ago.
5 minutes, okay. We like to fix things quickly here, okay. And the next question was around versioning. So Henry's been using an older version of Python. What does that mean for us?
You should probably use 3.9 or later.
okay. I can fix that. Not a problem, Raphael. Thank you.
Typically because 3.8 is just about to leave its development cycle, so it's not going to be maintained by the Python developers anymore.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm all the way back in 3.7. So that's even worse. Thanks.
Okay, well, you guys have been a great audience and it's been fun. Any other questions or things you'd like to discuss before we wrap up? Ellie, I will let you know that Bill is our trainer extraordinaire and helps work together on contracts, getting professional organizations set up. So Bill's email is bill@flow.gl. I'm Jason at flow.gl, and you can.
Yeah, actually, Ellie and I've already exchanged a few chat sessions. So
Okay.
we're in touch.
And any of you.
Jason, just one last thing, just to wrap my mind around this. So right now I'm going to jump directly into my VR set. So how like if I log in, how can I experience the let's say a flow inside the VR? Is it through a browser, or because I didn't really understand how should I do it?
Yes, it's through the browser. So
okay, got it.
Right, go to the Oculus browser, which is one of the default apps, a.flow.gl, pick a flow. It's you'll see the same UI that you know, that we on your main thing. But what's different is once you select the flow in the browser, there'll be two big buttons over the top of the flow. One is enter VR and one is enter AR. And click which one you want to do, and then to navigate around, you use your thumb controller. You'll see the next and back buttons, and yeah, it's I think it's such a great experience in headset.
No, I think thank you so much for the this demo. I think it's a very powerful tool. As you said, it's really cool, but at the same time, my goal, you know, is to convey that message in a way that is tangible and visible and easy to understand. So I think this is the perfect solution, really.
Thank you. We've been working it.
Yeah.
Great job, you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, nice seeing you all.
See you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Raphael.
See you tomorrow morning, Bill.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.